What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Luke with the Fair Enough podcast. I've got Hayden wearing whatever the heck that thing is on his head. I've got Micah wearing whatever the heck that thing is on his head. Uh, got fancy hat day going on today apparently, but Hayden's wife took his AirPods, so he gets to use the old headset. How's everybody doing today?
Heck yeah.
Doing good. Doing good.
Doing good.
A little sunburnt.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, you're just a little red.
Had a good weekend with you guys. Had a good weekend. Watched Micah get that sunburn. That was pretty entertaining. Don't really remember a lot of it, but I'm sure I was there. Anyways, so today we're gonna do some dynasty running back rankings. So we got a little hate for our quarterback rankings. I don't really think they were hate because they were the dynasty rankings. I think people thought we were just actually ranking quarterbacks. They would have been horrible quarterback rankings for the record. I will put that out there in advance, but this is for Dynasty Fantasy Football. I will remember to put that when I post it on TikTok. Maybe we'll get flamed a little bit less, but who knows? It was fun.
Probably
Hey,
not.
maybe the comments will just keep flowing. I don't care if they hate on us.
Yeah, they hate us because they ain't us or something like that. I don't know. All right, so we're going to do a top 30. We're going to break it down into two episodes. We're going to do 30 through 16 in the first episode, and then we're going to do 15 through 1 in the second episode. So, and if we're wearing the same stuff, it's because we're going to do them all tonight. So don't make fun of us. We do wear different clothing, I promise. All right, at number 30, we got Aaron Jones to start us off here. So we got an interesting mix of old men and young men. We'll kind of talk about that throughout, but old man Aaron to start us off. So I have him at 29, or I have him at 25. Micah has him at 29, and Hayden, you got him at 38. So for me here, I'm playing Dynasty, and we'll probably say this 100 times throughout the episode, how we play like our windows. So I go 2 to 3, and for me, when you get to this point, I don't know what you're getting from a lot of the people, and I think I get at least one really good year out of Aaron Jones. So that's why I have him a little bit higher than everybody else. I just feel like this year Aaron Jones is going to do really well in that offense, catch a lot of balls. They have Jefferson, they have Addison, they'll eventually have Hawkinson. But I think with either quarterback they have, they're going to baby them a lot. And so you're going to get a lot of dump offs to the running back, a lot of easy plays that you can get out quickly to kind of negate some of the things that they have to do.
Yeah, he barely breaks my top 30. I've got him right at 29, and it's just because of that 1 year window. I don't know how much he'll have after this year, whether it's 1 or 2 more years. It's hard to see him playing a whole lot longer. But with running backs, you can never go more than 3 years because it doesn't take much for a running back to get banged up and be out of the league just like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's probably why I put him at 38 is just because I think he's been getting banged up a lot more in these recent years. If he can stay healthy, though, I do think he'll have a pretty good year. But I guess just as far as dynasty goes, I didn't think he was somebody you could bank on long term. But if you are buying for like a championship this year and you need a guy to step in, produce in 1 year, I think he's going to be that guy. But like you guys said, where he'll be or if he'll stay healthy are kind of the big questions with him.
Yeah, health is definitely a big concern. I mean, even last year, the games he played, he was a stud, and he only played like 8 or 9 games. So
Yeah.
he really turned it on at the end of the year. Probably why he got even a little bit of a contract going forward. But yeah, so at 29, kind of have the opposite end of the spectrum here. We got Kendre Miller, young guy behind Alvin Kamara for the Saints. I had him at 37. I still think Kamara is good and has juice in the tank. That's one of the reasons that I had Kendre Miller lower. I know that he's talented. I just don't know when he'll get to see that opportunity. Um, and with running backs, it's kind of weird because if you don't play in your first couple of years, at least this is my opinion. Like I don't have a statistical back on this, but this is what it feels like. Is if you don't play in your first couple of years, you kind of just get left by the wayside, and then nothing really comes of your career. So if he doesn't play this year, to me, it's kind of on the fritz of whether he ever really becomes a starter or not.
Yeah, I've got him at 25 just because I do see a lot of promising stuff with him, and I think they'll give him a few more opportunities this year in that offense with a new regime coming in, new offensive line coaching. And I think I think he fits their new scheme. Didn't they get a new offensive line coach?
Yeah, I just was absolutely shocked that you
You
brought
blew
that
him
up
away
right
that you
now.
knew that.
Yeah. It's a bit, if I'm right, it's a bit more of a zone. I've been doing a lot of research lately, okay? It's a bit more of a zone block scheme, and that really fits what he does a lot better. And so I think he'll get a few more opportunities this year.
Holy
Yeah,
the
I
football
mean that
knowledge.
that just threw me off there. I mean, I've never seen Micah pull out knowledge
It,
like that, but he did say the other day he sent me a picture of his personal laptop in front of his work laptop. So I don't know how much work
Hey,
he's been doing this.
we can't, we can't say
it was his work laptop in front of his personal laptop. He was obviously doing the work first. Okay. But yeah, Kendra Miller did run his own scheme. The new offensive line runs his own scheme. Micah, like, that's top tier content right there, my guy. Great job. Great job. Way to pull on out. I'm still
Yeah.
thrown.
Um, I thought Kendrick Miller, he's got some potential. He's young, is probably the main reason why I kept him in the top 30. And he's got a really good skill set. Just when I was looking at him, he got hurt a lot last year. He barely played, and I don't like that. Since he was barely playing, he got banged up so much. Like, I think he only played in like 8 games, and he didn't have that many carries in the games that he did play in. So I personally think that Alvin Kamara is going to have at least 2 more very productive years in fantasy just because of the fact that he catches so many balls out of the backfield. And I think that's going to be the main reason you're going to want to keep him and still play him.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr last year threw like 700 targets to Alvin Kamara, so I don't think you can really argue with that. Check down King. So you love, you hate that when he's your dynasty quarterback, but you love that when you have the dynasty running back in that room. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, we'll talk more about Kamara later. Somebody had him way higher than the other two, so I wonder who it was. Uh, but Javante right here is who we got at 28. Javante Williams for the Broncos. I've got him at 21. Micah, you got him at 36, and Hayden, you got him at 31. So somebody else start us off this time. Micah, you muted your mic.
Sorry, my bad. I had to take a drink. My big thing, my big thing with Javante is if he keeps his job, I think he'll be great. But that's what worries me. I don't know if he has another year or two in Denver. I think I would love to see that, but that's where I'm worried. If he does, he's definitely higher than I have him, and I probably should have put him up there a little bit more just because there is a decent chance he keeps it. But I'm just worried he may lose his job and have somebody else step in there, and that's why I've got him so low. Other than that, I think he's still a good young guy who could really take off, and I could be completely wrong about him losing touches.
Yeah, it's definitely a talking point because they drafted Audric Estime and they signed Blake Watson out of Memphis. I really like Blake Watson. The thing that I would push back on that is Blake Watson fills the Jaleel McLaughlin role. I would be more scared about Jaleel McLaughlin because they're both fast pass catching backs. And then Audric Estime is kind of different than anything they have. He's really just a bulldozer, which is not what Javante is. So I think it's just they needed a guy for those 1 to 2 yard runs that they haven't had in a couple of years. Javante is more of a burst guy. So I think that the people they drafted don't really take from Javante's role; they take from the other roles. But that could also be way wrong because they still drafted 2 running backs, and so you might not do that if you're happy with what you have on the roster. They might be completely looking to just go forward with the new guys. So you could be totally right on that as well. That's why I have him at 21 because I see that room playing out where Javante's the lead, and then those other guys kind of fill the roles as they go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I put him at 31, and I really debated on putting him inside my top 30 just because I liked him when he was healthy, but he hasn't I mean, he had that torn ACL year, and then I mean, he's just been kind of banged up. I mean, last year he was all right. I mean, like you said, Jaleel McLaughlin kind of stole a lot of touches from him, especially in the pass game. And I would imagine he's going to be, you know, whether he'll be relevant will be whether or not he scores a lot of touchdowns. And then since they drafted a bulldozer, like you said, from Notre Dame on the goal line, I have a feeling that they may just give it to him. So,
Yeah, and I think when I get to this point, I kind of like my tiebreaker was talent because I think the situations when you're at this level in the rankings are kind of hard to judge. Like you're trying to piece together where everybody is for 1 year, for 2 years. And for me, Javonte Williams is the most talented running back at this point in time of, anybody from 23, 24 on. So I like to bet on talent. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes the best guy does not always either stay healthy or, the coach doesn't see it the same way that evaluators do. But I'm going to keep him up there until it's absolutely proven wrong.
yeah.
All right. So at 27, this one's going to be interesting because it plays into another person who we'll talk about later. But at 27, we got Jalen Warren. So I have him at 41. Micah has him at 26, and Hayden has him at 20. It's kind of hard to avoid the conversation because this is obviously a part of it, but I have Najee a lot higher than Hayden. And that's why I have him at 41 because I think Najee Harris is still really good. And I think that Arthur Smith's running style and scheme fits Najee a lot better than it fits Jalen Warren. Bijan Robinson did not get a lot of opportunities in the passing game. So I think that really kind of takes away from what Jalen Warren did last year. You add that with the fact that Russell Wilson is not big on checking down to running backs. I just don't see the role that Jalen Warren has being continued. And I think more of those touches go to Najee again, that he looks to be fully healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go because I'm the one that had him the highest at 20. I just think that he's a lot more skilled at running back than Najee. I mean, last year when he was in there, he just had a better spark. And Najee's been running this. I have had Najee in a league for like the last 3 years, and it's just the same thing every year. He's like a good, like a just barely average and just barely above sometimes. Like, I mean, he'll get you that like 12 to 15 range of points every week, and it's nothing special. And I just don't know if he's got like that other gear. Like, I mean, he's kind of like a bulldozer, but doesn't have the speed to juke anybody out and doesn't have the speed to get around the corner. And as far as pass catching, I think that um, Warren is just better. I know that you said, he won't have as many dump off passes in Arthur Bryant's offense, but I don't know. Maybe Russell Wilson might throw him a few more than what what's his name would have thrown last year for Pittsburgh, Kenny.
Yeah.
Or I guess they all three, or there's multiple quarterbacks for them.
Yeah, they were bad.
Yeah, I'm I'm with Luke. I just like Najee better. He had a bunch of games last year towards the end of the year when he finally started to look healthy that he played a lot better. And I just think he kind of wins out the role. But I also think Jalen still has somewhat of a role in that offense. But I just don't think it's quite as much. And so that's why I still have him up there, is because I still think he has a role. And when you have a guy who still has a pretty consistent role and is still young, you got to kind of have him up in that top 30, just because you got to expect if somebody goes down, they're still going to take over. And with running backs, people are always getting hurt. So you got to kind of have them up there expecting to maybe take over.
I
And
will
he's a
just
guy who's
say I will say that Najee has a lot more miles on him than Jalen does, though. Those first few years, they carried him like crazy, and he got beat up.
Yeah, and he had a ton of carries at Alabama too. Health is definitely a concern with Najee, but like Micah was just kind of talking about with running backs, I almost like unless you have like a huge injury like Javante's ACL or something like that, it's almost like null and void because they're all going to miss 5 to 6 games every couple of years. Um, but yeah, but Najee does have a ton of wear and tear on his tires because I think he had 2 years at Alabama too where he had a ton of carries. So it's a really
Yeah.
good point. All right, speaking of not having a lot of wear and tear in the pros, but a ton of wear and tear in college, we got Blake Corum right here at 26. I have him at 27. Mike has him at 23. Hayden has him at 33. So why don't you guys talk about the highs or the lows? Because I'm actually the middle guy for one of these things.
All right, I got him up there because I think he just steps in and takes a role this year. And as a rookie, if you've got a rookie coming in and taking some sort of role in an offense, I always like to see that. And I'm still pretty high on Kyron Williams too, who will probably get most of that load. But I just like what I saw from Corum in college, and I just think like if something happens and he steps in, it could be another like Cam Akers situation where Cam Akers kind of had to sit for a bit, and then Kyron just kind of took off and just took that over, and then Cam was just gone. And I could see something like that happening, and so that's why I kind of like him a little higher going in.
Yeah, I had him at 33. I'm not as high on him. I think his college career is going to outweigh his NFL career. I think he's got a lot of wear and tear on him, like Luke said, from his college career. And with Kyron Williams already up there, and clearly Sean McVay is perfectly fine with using him uh, keeping his usage very high. I mean, last year he was getting like 20 plus carries. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. So I just don't know that Blake Corum is going to get a whole lot of opportunity this year. He might be able to spare him a little bit, but I guess we'll just see how he does. If he looks good, then I would change my thought a little bit about his career moving on in fantasy, but I just don't know.
Yeah, my biggest pushback on that is I think they kind of noticed Kyron last year towards the end of the year just kind of started to decline a little bit just because of the amount of his usage. And so that's why I think the main reason they drafted him is to kind of give Kyron a little bit of a okay, let's give him a break, give him a possession off, and let him reset and just kind of take a little bit of wear off of him for the year.
It could be. It could be.
And that's where I am. Confusion. We've got to me because I totally see where you're coming from, Micah. But then my question for Sean McVay would be, why did you draft the same guy? Kyron Williams and Blake Corum are the same dude, and
They're
like
both smaller.
they're both really, yeah, they're both smaller. They're both really good running backs that aren't superior athletes. And so, for me, if you were going to draft someone to do kind of what you're talking about, why not get like a big hitter, somebody that can like spell in different ways? And then you hear that Kyron's hurt at the beginning of the year. So without that piece of news where Kyron, missed, and it didn't seem like it was serious, it didn't seem like it was anything, but like those two pieces of information, you just keep stockpiling them. I don't know. If you told me Kyron was fully healthy, I would have Blake Corum at pretty much off of this top 30 list for sure. Probably really low. But right now, it's just like there's so many pieces that kind of don't add up that I'm like, I'm going to put them both kind of in the middle of where I would have them each and let the cards play where they will.
Yeah.
All right. At 25, we got Tony Pollard. Um, I have him at 23. Micah, you have him at 27. Hayden, you have him dead smack in the middle at 25. Mike, I'll let you go first because I have something that I kind of want to do here.
So I like Pollard, but I don't know. I don't know what that offense is going to be this year, especially with Spears. They kind of have the same skill set, same attributes, and so if it was best ball, I kind of like him, but I just don't know how consistent he'll be this year. And with him getting a little bit older, I just if he has where he's not very consistent and they kind of push back and forth, I just don't know how much his fantasy value is with a split backfield.
Yeah, and I think I'm kind of I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of not with you because you didn't do what I thought you were going to do. I really thought you were going to say I have Tajay Spears ahead of him because he's better, which I agree with from a talent evaluation
Oh,
perspective.
I do too.
But then I was going to give you the Damian Pierce, Devin Singletary, where everyone and their mother thought Damian Pierce was better than Devin Singletary. But you show one team paying him money, and the other team had just drafted a guy who had performed pretty well the year before. And the NFL usually says, "Show me the money." So if you're paying a guy 10 plus million a year, that tells me that they want Spears to be the main guy. Or they want Pollard to be the main guy. If Spears is better, they'll still play Spears. Like the NFL is too performance indicative of like if you're good, you're going to play. But Pollard's going to have every opportunity to be the lead, and so that's where I'm also in a little bit of a limbo here because I think Spears is better, but the team wants Pollard to be better, and it's just hard to gauge that situation.
Yeah, and I was just, I mean, I'm kind of borderline too with you. I mean, I'm at 25, so not far behind. I just think that Ty J's a better athlete, like you guys said. I think he'll end up being the Titans' best running back. I don't know if Tony Pollard will stay there long term. I just don't know. I mean, I know they signed him to a decent contract, but that doesn't mean they couldn't move him. And also, I mean, I don't know if Tony Pollard is that guy. Like, I don't know if he's the guy who can take the majority of the carries. I mean, he took the majority of the carries with the Cowboys last year, who have a fairly decent line. Um, Probably a better line than the Titans. I don't know if it's getting close through draft picks or not, but I would assume it's way better. So, I mean, if he couldn't put up better numbers than he did last year, being the bell cow for them, I don't think he's going to this year. And I think him and Ty J are going to be pretty split. And I think everybody will kind of know that Ty J's better. It's just Tony's getting paid more. And I think eventually Tony will probably get moved and they'll go to a cheaper Ty J.
Yeah, the only thing that's weird is the Callahan running game is kind of different than what Dallas. It's a lot of different than what Dallas does, and it's a lot different than what the Titans did last year. So I wonder if they just think he's a better fit. I'm with Micah. I think they're pretty similar players, so I don't know why it would be such a big deal. But also, like, I'm not Bill or Brian Callahan in the X's and O's department. I won't claim to be. So maybe they see something on film where they think Tony Pollard is head and shoulders above. I don't know. To be determined. That backfield's going to be super interesting either way.
I mean, could it be because Derrick Henry left and they're just like, oh my God, we got to add more talent to the running back room?
That would be interesting, but the Bengals never did that under Callahan. I mean, they had Mixon and they never ran two running backs like ever. So
Yeah, that's
I don't know
true.
if it's really in their plan to do a two back system, but like I said, no one knows though. You could
Yeah.
debate on this one with pretty much everybody you know. So, and everyone has a Tajay Spears opinion, and most of the people are really high, and then there's a few
Yes.
that are really low. So he also did fumble a lot in college, so maybe that's something with Joe Mixon kind of having issues with. They didn't want to deal with that. So we'll see. All right, 24, Alvin Kamara. All right, Hayden is a little bit ahead of the other two of us. I have him at 29. Micah has him at 31, and Hayden has him at 14. So I feel like you got to go first. Hayden. You got to tell us your
Yeah,
situation.
I'm probably a little more partial because he helped me do really good in one of my leagues this past year. And honestly, I just don't think his production is going to dip that much. I don't think that Condre Miller, I mean, like we said before, I don't think he's going to overtake him for at least a couple of years. I mean, he hasn't shown any decline. I just think the offense is really not good under their head coach. And Derek Carr, I mean, Derek Carr didn't really help him other than he catches 12 balls a game for like 50 yards. But I mean, that gets you 17 points right off the bat. If he catches a TD, you know, he's had a great game as far as fantasy
Yeah.
goes. So that's why I like him because I think he's going to have more of those games because every year we say Derek Carr is going to do this, he's going to be better, he's going to do. I don't think that ever happens. I think he's going to be the same. Their offense might be a little better because they've got. I think they drafted more offensive weapons, but I just think that Alvin Kamara is still going to be very viable in the pass game. And then running wise, he's still got speed even at 28. I think he's 28. He's getting up there, but I think he's got a couple more years.
So I don't even disagree with anything you just said. I think all of that is true. I think I have him at more of a 1 year window than a 2 to 3 year window, and that's why I have him at 29. If I was thinking this year, Alvin Kamara would be very high on my list. I just really only see 1 year left for him. I think there's been a little bit of fall off in the speed, not enough to be like, oh, I got to be really worried, but enough for we're in Dynasty. Like I'm probably trying to get out before that, unless I'm like built to win a championship. So that's why I have him in 29. Like I said, agree with everything you said from a perspective of how he's going to do this year.
Yeah, he's for me. He's one of those that unless I think I'm winning this year, I'm probably selling him. Like just because I don't know how much longer he's going to last, and he relies so heavily on the pass game, and if it's not there, it's just uh, like I think he only averaged like 6 points a game from running last year, and everything else was receiving. It was something crazy like that. I'd have to go look it up, but I don't really want to put that much effort into it right now. Um, but and so like that's just it could be such a fall off because you just never know on stuff like that. But Derek Carr loves to check down to running backs, and so he's in the perfect situation for what he has been doing. And so I think he does have a good year this year. And I think if I'm trying to win, I keep him for sure. But if I'm not in win now mode, he's just one of those guys I've got to go, and that's why I've got him so low on my dynasty rankings.
Yeah, the only thing I
Yeah.
would say more is the reason I think he's got 2 years is because I think Derek Carr, unfortunately for the Saints, is possibly going to be there for another 2 years. I think he's got this year just because they don't have a better option. And then I think they'll be good enough this year that they won't draft anybody who's really going to be able to step in. So I think he's going to either be mentoring somebody or they just won't get anybody who's good enough to beat him out. So I think those
First of
catches will
all,
always be there.
first of all, don't you hate on my draft king Spencer Rattler? Second of all, they definitely have him for 2 more years with his contract because they cannot get out until 2026 or after
Yeah.
2025 before 2026. If they tried to get rid of him next year, he would have a dead cap hit of $50 million, which Russ proved. Like if you're bad enough, they'll get rid of you still. But he'd have to be really bad. I don't think he's going to be that bad this year. So
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. All right, 23. We got Zamir White. I've got him at 28. Mikey, you got him at 22, and Hayden, you got him at 18. So this is where it's kind of interesting because Hayden just had Kamara at 14 because he's going to be productive for now. And then Zamir White, who's a younger guy, he's also got at 18, and I've got 29, 28. So like I'm kind of the opposite, but the same situation. I don't know. It's definitely weird. So Hayden, why do you got Zamir at 18?
Just because I think they're gonna. I think he's got a good amount of talent for a young guy. I don't know that he's been given quite the best opportunity yet, but I think this is it. He's gonna be the main guy for them this year with Josh Jacobs leaving. It's gonna be an offense that's gonna struggle, so they're gonna try to run the ball. I mean, they're gonna have to do it. They just don't have it passing game wise, I think, to carry them. I do think the passing game will help them out a little bit if Devonte Adams and the Georgia tight end that they just drafted, they could maybe open up the running game a little bit for him, and maybe he'll. I'm just kind of banking he's a young guy. He's going to have that opportunity to start all year long and get all the carries. If he produces, that's all it takes for a running back is to just have a really good first year, and then it's like, okay, he's the guy. I mean, I think I'm just kind of banking on that he might do that for them.
Yeah, I really hate that that was your reasoning because my reasoning was that he's bad. So
Fair.
it's kind of
We
the
just
exact
differ there.
opposite. I guess it makes sense. I don't think he's like bad, but I think it's hard because the way that he really performed last year was through the passing game. They brought in Dylan Laube, who pretty much no one has heard of, out of New Hampshire. His number one skill is pass catching. He was called the D2 Christian McCaffrey. I'm not putting him on that level. He's not on that level. But the one thing he does really well is catch the ball. And so it'll be interesting to see. And then I think what you were talking about with the touchdown stealers, I forget who that, maybe that was with Javante. They also brought in Alexander Madison, who's kind of just a big guy for those short yardage situations. So I just think he's going to get some passing game stolen, some touchdowns stolen. And when you pull both of those things out, even in doses, it's just really hard to be super fantasy relevant all the time, especially on an offense that's going to be terrible. So,
Yeah.
the biggest thing probably for Zamir White out of all of it is the offense is going to be terrible. Like they are not going to score very many points at all.
Yeah.
So he better get a bunch of receptions, just like Kamara has to get pretty much.
Yeah, that was going to be my big thing with him is I just don't know if they're going to be in enough games for him to run a lot the whole game. Like I think I think they're going to be down a lot of games and going to have to go to the passing game late. And I think that just takes a lot of stuff away from him late in the game and just not near as many attempts. And when you've got a team that's in the lead, a lot of the game, it's always their running backs always seem to get a lot of touches. I mean, running the clock out, obviously. And with them, they're just, I don't see them. I mean, I think I had them winning 4 games this year, 4 to 6, if I remember correctly. And so I think they're just going to be behind a lot. So he's not going to get as many chances.
Yeah. And I would say for me, he was just honestly, it's sad because it's probably not enough to rank him that high. I was just being hopeful because in our 12-team dynasty league, it's just running backs are so hard to come by. So, like, I mean, if a new one can pop out each year, I mean, it's so helpful to pick up a guy like that.
Yeah. Did you see my quarterback rankings? You can definitely base your rankings on help, I promise. Okay. Number 22, Joe Mixon. So right here, I've got Joe Mixon at 17. Mikey, you got him at 25. Hayden, you got him at 21. For me, this is pretty much the exact opposite of Zamir White, so it flows really nicely. I'm glad that that segue was built in for me. I don't know how great Joe Mixon still is, but he's going to get a lot of work and he's going to be on a great offense. They pretty much don't have anyone that I'm afraid of in that backfield behind him. Um, they lost Devin Singletary, so now it's Damian Pierce again. I think will be their backup. Um, I know they brought in some rookie. I think it was Jawar Jordan out of Louisville, who is a big hitter. I think he might make some plays, make some splash plays, but I don't think he'll be a big knock in the workload for Mixon. So lots of touchdowns, lots of catches. Can't ask for much more out of a running back. If he was just a year younger, he'd be really high for me, but just old enough to kind of age him out of that top 15 range.
Yeah, their offense is going to be good this year, and I just don't know how good Joe still is. I mean, their offense was pretty bad last year, um, and so moving teams, his offense is going to be pretty firepower this year. A lot of different weapons, and so I'm just not sure how good he still is, and what kind of role he's going to have there. I mean, he's obviously going to be their lead back. But I just don't know what that offense looks like yet. I mean, we know it's going to be good. We just don't know what they're going to do week to week. So I just don't know where I feel on him there.
Yeah. I split the middle of you guys. I'm not as high on him as Luke. I don't think he's going to get as many touchdowns as like Luke thinks. I mean, I think he's going to get some touches, but like Micah said, in that offense, I don't know if he's going to touch the ball a lot every possession because with the wide receivers and the weapons they have, they can air it out so easily. And I mean, I just feel like they're going to be a big play offense this year, and that really hurts for a running back. You'd rather have some more methodical drives where he's getting 5 or 6 touches, and I don't know if I see a lot of that. Also, his averages last year were not great. I know it didn't help that the offense was kind of not playing as well with Joe hurt, but I just don't know if he's still got it. And then I also ranked him a little bit, I guess, behind Zamir just because of the age. I mean, I was just thought maybe a younger guy had more of an opportunity, and I thought Joe was kind of getting to the point where he's got 1 year, maybe two.
Yeah, no, I definitely see all of that. My pushback would be they are going to have a lot of talent on the outside. They still ran the ball quite a bit last year with Devin Singletary and then paid Joe Mixon to be a lead guy. I think they're trying to run the ball. They have a defensive coach at heart. I know that their offensive coordinator really likes to air it out, but in a lot of those locker room conversations, the head coach kind of takes the forefront of the team mentality. So maybe D'Amico Ryans wins a few conversations and Joe Mixon gets a few more carries. Either way, I could totally see both of you being right. Mike, I could see Joe Mixon just not being good anymore, and Hayden, I could see a low workload. So I think he is definitely a volatile piece to have, but I think his ceiling is high. And once again, I love high ceilings. So yeah, Joe
Fair.
Mixon for president. I'd probably vote for him
He's the only
over
Joe
what we
I'd vote
got.
for.
All right, we got Tajay Spears, 21. I've got him at 24. Y'all both have him at 19. Consistency. One of you guys go ahead. We kind of already did
Uh,
Tajay, to be honest, but
yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing is his talent. I think he's got more talent than Pollard. I think he showed well last year, but they still used Derrick Henry quite a bit. I mean, even as old as he was, Derrick Henry was still pretty productive. Um, but I thought Ty when he was in there, he showed really well in the pass game, and I just think that um, I think he's going to be a better running back in the long run, and he's younger. I think Pollard has had his fumble issues. I think they may both have fumble issues, but if he can keep that up, I mean, one of them could possibly get benched for that possible issue. Maybe it'll be Tony Pollard rather than Tajay or Ty. So
yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Tajay is better, actually. I think we all think that. Um, for me, I'm just following the money. It's the only reason he is where he is. Because if they wouldn't have paid Tony Pollard, I imagine that Tajay Spears would be in my top 10 if they didn't have Tony Pollard on the roster right now. The only other thing that probably should get mentioned is he came in with a knee issue. Um, and so maybe that's one of the reasons they brought in Pollard as well. So maybe it is Tajay's, going to be the guy that we have on the roster, but we need another guy in case that is a bigger issue than we think it is. I think he has something kind of similar to Todd Gurley with the inflammation thing. Not a doctor, also. Not an X's no guy, not a doctor. But I do know that they were like bad knee. And so that was one thing that was kind of scary about him coming in. Micah, if you keep muting your mic and I'm muting your mic, I'm going to punch you in the throat.
It's just, why is blinking on these mics muted? I feel like
That's a
red,
valid question.
I feel like red would be muted. I literally looked at it 4 times. It's like, oh, it's blinking. I'm good to go. But so but yeah, I don't remember what I was saying when I was muted. Oh yeah,
for a loop.
Luke, with your talking about the money, like I mean, when you pay a running back, it's hard. It's hard to think that he's not going to play, and so with paying Pollard or Tony Pollard, it's just. I mean, it kind of scares me a little bit, but I just think Spears is better, and I think he'll just have a chance this year to really take over that role. So,
Yeah.
Micah, you're echoing really bad.
me,
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to number 20. Derrick Henry. The old man himself. The oldest man on the list, probably, actually. Let me look. Okay, that's for sure true. All right, I've got him at 18. Micah's got him at 17. Hayden, you got him at 27. So we'll let you go first since Micah would be the high end of that. And however you want to say that.
Yeah.
Micah's got him the best.
Yeah. Um, I think he's gonna be good this year, but I don't think he's got much after this year. I really do. I mean, as good as he's been, I would have thought it would have ended earlier than this. Actually, like I wouldn't have thought he would have got the chance to go there and be this good. Um, but I do think he will be good with Lamar. I just Keaton Mitchell looked really good last year too. I think with Keaton Mitchell there still, um, I think he's going to split some carries there because he's more of a speed guy. But I do like the fact that they picked up um, a big guy in Derrick Henry. I just don't think he's got much more than this year, and that's why I put him lower. Because with it being dynasty rankings, if you were trying to win this year, yes, but if you're trying to build for the long term, no.
Yeah, I think that's where I would be like, for me, I get for sure one top tier year, as opposed to, you're talking about Tajay Spears. I don't know if I ever get it, or somebody like that. I do think he's probably 1 year. I think Keaton Mitchell, if he gets back healthy, I totally agree with what you're saying. He's going to take touches. He's too explosive to not be on the field. I don't remember when he got hurt, and for when I made these rankings, I thought it was too late for him to get
I think
back.
he was like in
Um,
the lower third of the year.
oh, well, then I would probably have Derrick Henry lower. Keaton Mitchell plays, but when I filled this out, I thought he was not going to be back. So for me, I was like, I get probably 1 year of 200 carries, somewhere around there, and touchdowns galore in that offense. So from like I said, just 1 year of elite over 3 years of maybe pretty good.
Yeah, I just love him in this offense, and that's why I've got him up there. Like, I mean, I just love what he's going to be able to do this year. I think he's going to put up crazy numbers again this year. But like you said, his longevity is what you got to worry about. I know he'll be this year, but next year's an iffy. And but he's one that it's just he's been so dominant when he gets out there, and he hasn't had an insane amount of injury issues. I mean, when he plays, he usually plays. Like, I mean, and so to get just one really good year and maybe something a second year, but that just offense with him is just going to be fun to watch this year. And I think he's going to just put up crazy numbers this year. But like you said, he's old. So, I mean, he's definitely not topping my top 15 just because of how old he is.
Yeah. So we all kind of agree and just ranked them differently.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of ranking them differently, boy. All right. So I've got Najee at 13. Micah, you got him at 18. Hayden, you got him at 30. Um, for me, this is pretty simple. I just think Najee is really good at football. I know that there have been some times in his career where he didn't look explosive. I thought towards the end of last year, I saw some of that explosiveness again. There was all the stuff about his foot and the plate and all of that crap. I don't know how much that's real, how much of it's not. There's so much smoke about all of those stories. But to me, you have Arthur Smith, who does weird things, like you saw with Bijan. So I can't have him really high, but I do think he's going to get a ton of carries. I personally think he's a much better running back, as far as purely running the football, than anyone else on their roster. They also brought in Cordero Patterson and Jalen Warren, who are obviously going to take some of the pass catching responsibilities in that offense. But for me, I think Najee's probably going to be a 20 carry guy for the next 2 years, as long as there's not injuries or something like that. So it's hard for me at his age to not have him where he's at 13 for me.
Yeah, and I guess I was just on the absolute opposite of you guys, or mainly Luke, because, well, I have been playing him. I just don't think he can go much above an average running back. He's always right around that average running back two area. I think he's gotten kind of beat up. I mean, he hasn't had a significant injury since he's been in the NFL, but he just has had a lot of wear and tear, and he had wear and tear in college. I just don't know if he can keep doing that. He's got a younger guy on the roster who has shown that he can compete with him for touches, who I think will compete and will have better rushing averages. And as far as pass catching, he'll have more targets. So I just think that hurts Najee. I do think Najee will play for probably at least 2 more years in a somewhat starting role slash splitting carries role. So I mean, you'll get touches for him, but I just don't know if he's going to really do a whole lot with him because he hasn't done a ton with him so far.
Yeah, and I'm kind of between the two of you guys. I'm with Luke. I think he's the better of the two running backs, and I think he's going to get a majority of the role. I just think Jalen Warren's going to get more of a role than Luke thinks a little bit. And so that's why I've got him a little bit lower. It's just I think Jalen Warren just takes enough of that away. I think I think Najee gets a little bit more of a role than last year, and I think he's going to be better than last year. But I think Warren still takes enough of that to make him out of my top 15.
Yeah, what's going to happen is it's freaking Arthur Smith and Cordero Patterson's going to be the one you should have next year. But okay, that's my Bijan rant from last year. Freaking one of the best running backs in football. Let's give it to Tyler Algier. You know who's not in the top 75? Tyler Algier. Okay. Now that's the end of the Bijan rant.
What are you talking
All
about?
right.
I'm at like 12. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I know you're kidding, but I can't take
I,
that right now.
I would love it if you had him at 12.
I'd be like, oh, sorry, Micah. I'm not putting him in the episode. I don't care. Hayden could have him at 4. You could have him at 3. And I'd be like, what do I need to rank him to pull him out of the average?
But you would also want to hear what our argument is because it would have to be so stupid.
That's so true. That's actually pretty true. Okay. DeAndre Swift at 18. Me and Micah both have him at 20. Hayden, you got him at 17. Hayden, you go ahead. You're the only one that's different.
Yeah, I like where he went to. I like where he went. The Bears. That offense is going to be really stacked. I think he's going to get a lot of touches out of the backfield. As far as dump downs for Caleb Williams, he's going to be just learning how to play in the NFL. I mean, I think he's going to do really well, but he's still going to need to dump it off every once in a while. And DeAndre is really good in open space. I also think he's going to get those screen touches. And I think that they'll try to work him more into the offense than what the Eagles did last year. It seemed like it was like every other week for the Eagles. It was like, okay, this week we're going to give the ball to DeAndre Swift. And then this week it's like, where the hell is he? Did he even come to the game? Like, is he suited up? But I think he'll do a lot better for the Chicago Bears. And he's still a young guy. It seems like he's been in the league forever, just because he's had that top name for a while and he was hurt at the beginning of his career. But he's still a young guy, so I think there's potential he could stay viable for a few more years.
Yeah, I think my thing with DeAndre Swift, and I had him at 20, which kind of just middle of the pack. And the reason he's middle of the pack for me is because I can see a world where he's like top 10, and I can see a world where he's like kind of irrelevant. And so I didn't want to put him up with the guys that like that we've kind of talked about so far that I had ahead of him. But I also know that he's good enough that I didn't want to move him down too low. I wanted him still in my RB2 range. So I kind of just stuck him somewhere, honestly. I really could see either of those scenarios playing out. I think the most unlikely scenario is that we come back and do this again next year and DeAndre Swift is running back 20. I think he'll either be way higher or way lower, and I could see it going either way.
Yeah, that's where I agreed with you on him. Is I really didn't know where to put him because I don't know if he's going to be good enough to boom up there and be in the top 10, but he has the potential to in that offense. But he also has a potential to just fall off and just not be anywhere next year in our rankings. Like I just don't know what he's going to do. Like last year, some games would go off, and then other games he just wouldn't do a lot. And I don't know if that was scheming or what, but I just don't know what I'm going to get out of him, and so it was hard for me to put him up there anywhere really relevant.
And that's kind of been his whole career. Even when he was in Detroit, like he would go out there and he'd look like the best player on the field, and then the next week he wouldn't play, and you're just like, what is going on? So I don't know if
Yeah.
it's like a mental thing or something, but I don't know. He has the talent to be really high, and sometimes he just doesn't play like that.
Something that'll
So
help is there's going to be a lot of scoring in that division. I mean, the Eagles did
yeah,
they were scoring early and he was playing well, and then it got to the point where it was like they couldn't really run an offense. So,
yeah, and then later in the season they're just going to run an offense at all.
yeah.
All right, number 17, Trey Benson. So right here, this is where it starts to get a little bit more towards the top end of the consensus rankings. I think that Keep Trade Cut, which is who we use for consensus, has him at 15. So he would be in that top 15. But for me, I have him at 19. Mike has him at 16. Hayden has him at 22. The reason that I don't have him in that top 15 is James Conner. When we're talking about some of these other players that have a bigger role coming up, the guy in front of them has either underperformed or is like unhealthy. James Conner has been really good. I mean, he's missed a couple games here and there for health, but he's been pretty healthy as far as running backs go. So I think it's just going to take him a while to get a role. I don't know if that means this year, if that means 8 games, what that means. To me, he's just the best player in the worst situation left on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I went a little lower than you. Sorry, Micah. I'll go ahead.
we
Sorry.
just jumped
All
with
right.
you. You're good.
All right. I had it at 22. I just same thing with James Conner. I think he steals a lot of touchdowns away at the running back position. The thing that makes James Conner fantasy relevant a lot of times isn't because he's rushing for over 100 yards, but he's catching like 4 to 5 balls, and he usually can end up getting a touchdown or two in a game. So I think that would hurt him. I do think he's going to get some touches and he'll be good. It's just how much longer is James Conner there for them? Is it, is he getting older and they're going to want to move off of him? So then I would probably be higher up on Trey Benson, but I just don't know what happens with James Conner there. He's been really good for them. I would think they'd want to keep him and just kind of run out his career there a little bit. But I could also see them if Trey shows flashes of brilliance, like a Jameer Gibbs or something, when they had David Montgomery doing well, then they could just move off of James Conner altogether.
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of at. I think he's going to get enough of a role to see what he can do this year, and I think he's going to slowly just kind of take over. And then I think they're going to realize that uh, James Conner is old enough; it's getting close enough time to kind of move on. And I think he just slowly takes a bit more of a role every year. And I just think with James Conner's age, he's going to have a significant role either next year or the year after. And I think once he kind of takes over, I think he's really going to take off. And so that's why I've got him up there. Is I think in the next 3 years, he's going to have a really significant role. And I really liked what I saw out of him. So
Yeah, and David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs is a perfect like that. Hayden, that was so good. That was so good. Because for
Well, thank
me,
you.
David Montgomery is worse than Jameer Gibbs right now, and Jameer Gibbs still showed. I mean, more than flashes. Jameer Gibbs was excellent last year, but David Montgomery takes just enough away, and he's still there this year, and the team loves him. And James Conner kind of has that same feel of like the Arizona Cardinals players and coaches love James Conner, and I don't know that they'll ever. I don't know that he'll fully go away until he goes away on his own. And especially if the Cardinals are good this year, which I think they're going to be, James Conner is going to be a piece of that, and I don't see them just letting him walk away. So it's always going to be a little thorn in the side. That gosh, man, I wish I would have thought of that. I'm smart. Okay, Ramondre Stevenson, number 16. Uh, so me and Micah both had him in the top 15. I had him at 14. Mike had him at 15. Hayden had him at 23. If we would have done this a week ago before the extension, I probably would have had him at 20. Um, them giving him 3 years tells me that he's going to be the lead back. He's the one that they want to be there long term. And that Antonio Gibson is just going to be a little piece of the offense that's extra. Um, their offense still stinks, so that's why he's at 14 and not higher, because I think Ramondre Stevenson's really good. You give me 3 years with him. which probably means 2 in running back years, but still 2 years with the team he's with now. Um, I just think he's really talented. He can catch balls. He's big enough to score touchdowns, but the offense still stinks.
Yeah, I went with 23 just because I think he's gonna be that board. He's gonna be that running back 2 one week, and then the next week he's gonna have like nothing because their offense isn't gonna score or they're gonna get shut out, um, or they're gonna stop the running game to the point where he's just not valuable. And the last few years, he's been fairly healthy. I mean, he's had a couple instances where he's gotten hurt, missed a few games, but I just think like you, I mean, I don't see where their offense can do very much this year. They've got a lot of young and they've got a lot of new um in their coaching, and I think it's all going to be coming together at once. They're going to have growing pains, and I know they signed him, so he'll be playing for probably a couple more years for them. But I don't know if they're going to grow offensively to where he'll be super valuable in a dynasty format for you. I think he can be a running back 2 on his best day, and other than that, he'll be on your bench.
Yeah, that I just I think he's good enough that he's probably the only piece. I wouldn't say only. He's one of the main pieces I want on that offense if I want any. Um, just because I mean he's been consistent over the last years. Like I mean he was fairly consistent last year, and their offense was still terrible. Um, I mean I'll go look. I think he was a top. Let's see. Let's find him. Um,
He's gonna be lower because he missed a bunch of games.
Oh yeah, I forgot he got hurt last year. But when he played last year, he was consistent. I mean, he always seemed to. Um, yeah, I mean, he missed one, two, three, four, five games at the end of the year, and he was still. Where does that have him? Why doesn't it show? He was still running back 35, missing almost half the year, a third of the year. Math is hard. I mean, I just think he's still going to be pretty consistent even in a bad offense, and that contract extension verified that he's going to be there for a while for me, and so that's where I have him higher. Is I just think he's going to be their guy for 3 years and still be a consistent guy when he's on the field.
Yeah, and Hayden, to your point, I really agree with a lot of what you're saying of the ceiling's not there this year, but with the 3-year contract, I'm going to hold and see if the ceiling's there next year and see if Drake May progresses. And that's the thing about bad offenses with a rookie quarterback, like Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, for example. I know they're bad. I know this year that they are not going to be a good offense because I've seen both of them play football. Like they might be a decent team, the Raiders, because their defense is going to be really good. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are not putting up stats. Drake May could put up stats. Like he could be CJ Stroud. I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying anything of the sort. But like right now, if you have Ramondre Stevenson, I know he has talent. So if the offense can do anything that we don't expect, Ramondre is going to be somebody that's a huge benefit of that. And he's young. So I'm just going to take kind of those risks in that scenario. If Hayden's right, what you should do is wait until the end of this year and then buy Ramondre Stevenson. That's what I.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, if I needed a running back 2 like that, I mean, I would for sure keep him. It's just, I'm not going to expect a lot of boom with him. I guess it would be my only point. So I was keeping him middle ground there.
Yeah. I don't think I expect a lot of boom either, but I value that 12 to 15, which probably is the conversation with Najee that I should have said too. I value that knowing that you're getting 12 to 15 and you're running back 2 a little bit higher than preparing for that boom. All right, that is 30 through 16. We will be back. I will turn my lights on so that you can see me for the next episode.
No, I think they'd rather you keep him off.
I have a face for podcasting. I don't know why we do video on this thing, but all right, that is it. But I guess we should sign this off because the people are going to listen to it like 2 days early because I'm not releasing them both at the same time. Take that, guys. Um,
Eh.
only person that's going to care is Brady, if we're going to be really honest. But
Well, nobody else cares about Brady, so just kidding, Brady. Love you.
love you, Brady. Adios.
See ya.